an overworked but extremely talented engineer who creates animatronics. He spends so much time working on these animatronics that he struggles to find time to care for his child. After a while, he realizes he could create an animatronic to watch his child for him. The child would be happy to have something made for them, and he'd get the free time to work. Unfortunately, the animatronic alone fails to ensure the child's safety, and they die alone in the street. Who came to your mind first, Edwin or the game's version of Henry? These characters are extraordinarily similar, even though we only really know Henry after Charlie dies. I think that if we saw Henry before Charlie's death, they'd look even more similar. He'd probably also come across as a more sympathetic character than he does now. There's been a long-standing argument regarding these two characters within the community. It centers around whether Edwin is canon to the games, or if he's just a parallel to Henry. The community seems pretty evenly split on which one they believe. Because of this, I thought it might be interesting to look at the implications of both options. We'll start with looking at the relationship there being parallels would have with some major plot points. Firstly, it would offer an explanation as to how the Mimic made its way into the burned-out pizzeria and even lower, as Henry knew about these areas when most others didn't. Edwin's little vanishing act after destroying the Mimic animatronic for being too much like his dead son could, again, parallel Henry's disappearing act after Charlie dies and possesses the puppet. Speaking of Edwin destroying the Mimic, I know you might be thinking that Henry would never do something like that to the puppet. But he does. In Pizzeria Simulator, we find out he's created Lefty to trap the puppet and apply continuous voltage, aka constant electric shocks. Then, he chucks her in a fire to burn, allegedly. These aren't the actions of the virtuous, loving father that some make him out to be, but they do mirror Edwin's. After all, Henry is destroying the puppet because Charlie is in there. The biggest issue with them being parallels is that would make Henry responsible for the creation of the Mimic. This is no small hiccup, as we already know that the animatronic Henry creates for his child is the puppet, not the Mimic. To solve this, we'd need to make one of two claims. Either Henry built the Mimic, but for different reasons than Edwin, or the puppet and the Mimic are the same animatronic. For obvious reasons, this is where, for many, parallels falls short. Neither of these explanations seems feasible, and to claim either is true sounds kinda out there. Because of these problems, we see plenty of people claiming that these are completely separate characters that are both canon to the game's story. One of the biggest reasons being that it erases the issues of who created the Mimic, when, and for what reason. All of their commonalities can also be explained away as coincidence. It seems perfect on the surface. However, because of the chronological placement of Edwin starting a company being in the early 70s, he would have been working on the Core 4 animatronics no later than 1979, a fact brought to my attention by Immense Andrew's survival logbook video. I'll link it in the description for anyone who wants a thorough explanation of where the dates I'm using come from. This already presents a problem. Why, before the widely accepted 1983 date of the first Freddy Fazbear's Pizza restaurant opening, would someone that wasn't even Henry be working on the Core 4 cast of animatronics? Without some outside force we haven't thought of yet, they wouldn't be. But there's even more. This would place the events of the storyteller in 2015, which doesn't track for any timeline I've ever seen of the games. Long story short, with FNaF 3 taking place 30 years after Freddy Fazbear's Pizza closed its doors, and the absolute earliest important closure event being in '85, that means that Fazbear Fright also takes place in 2015. And let's not forget that we still need to somehow fit Pizzeria Simulator in between the two. But someone had to create the Mimic. It didn't just appear out of thin air. It's also clearly much older than the other tech in the Pizzaplex. So, this means parallels must be the answer. But he can't be a parallel with Henry. That means he's parallel to the creator of the Mimic, whoever it may be in the game's canon. It might just be a different version of Edwin. But that would be a really boring end to this video, wouldn't it? Especially considering that this explanation leaves one more problem. As far as we know, there shouldn't be another engineer involved in creating the Core 4 animatronics. But I do have a possible solution. Fall Fest. Fall Fest was a thing at least from 1970 to 1983, as shown by the posters we see around in Help Wanted 2. The presence of these posters also implies that Fazbear owns the Fall Fest IP, meaning that whatever Fall Fest was, it belongs to Fazbear. But not Fazbear Entertainment. Instead, it belongs to a parent company, Fazbear Enterprises. They likely also own Afton Robotics, Circus Babies Entertainment and Rental, Chica's Party World, obviously Fazbear Entertainment, and probably a bunch of other companies. You may recall that as of the end of Pizzeria Simulator, Fazbear Entertainment is no longer a corporate entity. This still holds true, as if you look at the Balloon Boy arcade machine in the back room of the daycare, it clearly shows that Fazbear Entertainment is an LLC, which is not a form of corporation. I believe Fazbear Enterprises reformed Fazbear Entertainment as an LLC after the press coverage of the Pizzeria Simulator fire died down. Adding to this, the very name of FNaF 5 is a clue in itself. Sister location. According to Investopedia, sister companies are related to one another by virtue of the fact that they share a common parent entity. This would imply that the location we play in during sister location is owned by the same parent company as the others. The little interview we hear of Afton also always struck me as more of a conversation with corporate higher-ups than a police investigation.
There's no doubting what you've achieved on a technical level. These are clearly state-of-the-art. There are just certain design choices that were made for these robots that we don't fully understand. We were hoping that you could shed some light on those.
She can dance. She can sing. She's equipped with a built-in helium tank for inflating balloons right at her fingertips. She can take song requests. She can even dispense ice cream.
With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
It's time we reframe how we think about the beginnings of Fazbear Entertainment. I think the Fazbear brand started out with the Sing-In Show prior to the advent of Fall Fest, and that Fall Fest was an expansion on that show. The costumes from the Fall Fest were sent off to engineers to turn into animatronics after Henry's Kids restaurant, the one the Mediocre Melodies originated in, was bought out by Fazbear Enterprises. Henry's original company was either dissolved in favor of or rebranded into Fazbear Entertainment. While Henry and Afton were put in charge of running Fazbear Entertainment, the intellectual property of the characters and Fazbear Entertainment as a whole were still technically owned by Fazbear Enterprises. This is why, in preparation for the addition of a larger band to the Fazbear Entertainment venues, Enterprises could send out Chica, Foxy, Freddy, and Bonnie costumes to a different engineer to be turned into animatronics. While he never managed to finish those, he did create something else. Something Fazbear Enterprises apparently thought might be useful at some point. And Henry and Afton were stuck figuring out the Core 4 animatronics by themselves. At this point, the happenings we're all familiar with occur. Their children die, the MCI happens, all of the events of the games through Pizzeria Simulator. After Henry burned himself alive in a franchised Fazbear Entertainment restaurant, the company was dissolved to avoid any lawsuits or bad press. After it all died down, the company was resurrected as an LLC, and, without Henry or a complete version of Henry's animatronics, they had to use the Mimic as the basis for the new generation of animatronics when the Pizzaplex was built. They reused as much as they could for everything that came out of Fazbear Entertainment. The land, old circuit boards, the Mimic, and the Mimic program. And we've seen how well that worked out for them. I'd like to invite you to share your thoughts on this theory in the comments, especially if you're an avid Tales games believer. Do you have any ideas that could reconcile the timeline discrepancies between the games and the books? I'd be very interested in hearing your thoughts. And thanks for watching. And a little aside, as I absolutely owe everyone who's given their support to this channel a massive thank you. I unlocked access to monetization and memberships, meaning I can make a bit of extra cash off of what was, up to this point, nothing more than a fun hobby. I did set up the memberships, and I want to actually direct everyone over to the Discord. It's been there in my descriptions for a while, but I haven't actually mentioned it in a video yet. One of the perks of joining the channel is access to the members-only chat in that Discord server. I stay pretty active on Discord, and I have some lovely friends that have set the Discord up, so it's nice and pretty for you guys. Thank you so much for your support up to this point, and I hope I can do you guys proud. An extra special thanks to my first channel members, Ballsfrog and Emberisk, to Charlie Bean for making my channel art and helping critique my theories, to my husband for being so patient and keeping our son occupied while I make these, and to the rest of my friends for being so encouraging. I couldn't ask for a more supportive and inspiring group of friends, so thank you.